Welcome to the Panic Room, where we talk about all things panic-inducing. I am the Queen of Panic. Warning, some episodes may contain content that may be disturbing to others. Viewer discretion is advised. Now let the games begin.
Ben only wanted the party to end. He'd become accustomed to isolation and only paid any real, if distant, attention to his two friends, Jay and Thomas. But a full-blown birthday party was simply too much for Ben to handle, especially since the only one he genuinely wanted to be there would never be able to make it.
Hey, sport.
Ben's father, a lanky, dark-haired man by the name of Dave Ross, chuckled.
Why the long face? It's your birthday. Let loose a little. Stop being such a sourpuss. Not every day you turn 12.
He was wearing his typical white button-up shirt and tie. Ben forced a slight upwards motion from the corners of his lips and glanced down awkwardly. He did not want Dave to go on about his mood again.
What? Did you not like your presents? Let me guess. We got you the wrong Harry Potter book. Damn it. I knew Penny was wrong about it being the Prisoner of Casket-ban or whatever it was. Should have gone with the Wizard's Stone.
Ben's mother, Penny, peeped her head out from behind Dave's back and gave him a disapproving look before returning her conversation with Ben's uncle Larry, who was a local deputy.
No, sir.
Ben mumbled.
It's the right one, and I like it a lot. I like all the presents. It's just...
What?
I wish Daniel could be here.
Ben noticed that Daniel's mother, Irene, shot a sad glance towards him.
Well, he can't sport.
Dave continued.
And the sooner you get over it, the better. Won't help you any to keep moping around all the time.
Excuse me?
Irene spoke, her brown eyes ablaze.
But what happened to my son was a tragedy. And Ben is going through grief. And so are myself, my family, and everyone who knew him. I would expect a little more respect from you.
Dave shuffled his feet and said,
Well, yeah. I mean, it's sad and all. He was a good kid, but really, what use is it to be letting it all get to you? Out of sight, out of mind, eh?
Irene was about to slap him across the face, but thought better of it. And not wishing to get caught up in the middle of the altercation, as his father commonly tried to involve Ben whenever he was nearby, Ben quickly snuck away and went over to the kitchen to get another bowl of ice cream. Only a few weeks prior, the body of an 11-year-old boy was found in their town of Woodgrove, a suburb south of Nashville and slightly north of Maysburg. The discovery of the boy's body was shocking, as it had been discovered in the field one night by a passerby who mistook it for roadkill at first glance. It was deemed a hit and run. That boy was Daniel Mortley, and was Ben's best friend out of their group of 4. The news had hit hard, and nothing had been the same quite since. Ben had withdrawn from his previously thriving social life, and chose instead to read books in the small closet attached to his playroom. Even at school, his relationship with his other 2 friends, Jay and Thomas, had grown distant, and they got along almost like acquaintances rather than good friends.
Hey, what was your dad saying to you back there?
It was Ben's cousin Mike.
Oh, that I need to get over stuff.
He wiped off his glasses and pushed back his long, thick brown hair. Mike was a tall, broad-shouldered man in his early 20s with a plethora of tattoos and baggy eyes.
Jackass. I was about to say something to him, but I guess that's taken care of for me.
He nodded towards the front of the living room, where Dave was trying to shimmy his way unsuccessfully through the front door, blocked by Irene. She wasn't yelling, but Ben knew an ash chewing when he saw one. Dave did it plenty.
Yeah, I heard about what happened. Larry told me. How do you feel about your dad?
Ben looked around awkwardly, hoping that his mother wasn't nearby to witness such a direct question.
I don't know. I don't really... I know him that well.
You know, he reminds me a bit of my granddad. He acted nice to your face, but deep down he was a coward. And I'm sorry about what happened, man. If you ever need to talk about anything, I'm here for you. You know, I lost a friend once too. I was about 14, I think. So, I know how it feels. Your mom should have my number.
Ben's shoulder was suddenly grasped by a firm fist, and he looked up to see the tan, gray-haired face of his grandpa Charlie, looking cheerfully at him and Mike.
You're not trying to teach the boy physics again, are you, Mike?
Charlie chuckled.
Though, you should keep Mike in mind if you ever need help in math or science.
Nah, just making sure he's okay.
Oh,
Charlie said, taking his hands off Ben's shoulder.
right. A real shame. An even bigger shame that my son is over there making a big fool of himself. This is a party. We're here to forget about our problems just for a little bit.
Say, where are your friends, Ben?
His grandma Helen asked.
I think Granny Helga is showing the pictures of Dad as a kid.
Ben replied as he reached for the chocolate mint ice cream on the counter. Mike twirled his fingers by his temple and ambled out to the back porch, where Ben saw him light a cigarette. Eventually, Penny somehow managed to calm down Daniel's parents, after which was left an air of tension that almost felt suffocating. Helga fell asleep, and so Ben, Jay, and Thomas were left free to run around their small backyard like the old times, even if it did feel a bit lonely without their fourth member. Dave stayed holed up in the garage for the remainder of the time, not re-emerging until everyone except Helga had left.
All right, sport.
He announced as he changed into his dress clothes in the kitchen.
Your mother and I are going out tonight. Helga will stay here to watch you. We probably won't be back until late. And be in bed by the time we get home. Got that, Ma?
Grandma Helga nodded her head and ambled over to the couch and turned on the television. Dave sighed and grabbed Penny by the arm and shuffled out the door. Ben walked over to the refrigerator to grab a Sprite. Helga was already engrossed in her unadmitted obsession with Stargate. This was Ben's cue to leave the vicinity, lest he die of boredom, and already it seemed to him that this episode would be excruciatingly dull. Grabbing his sparkling new copy of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, Ben made his way upstairs to his playroom, which was still strewn with the Legos he still played with. The wall on the far side of the door faced the street, and looking at the room from the doorway, on the right wall, was a small door that led into sort of a cubby hole with a light in it. It was here that Ben spent most of his time, reading books to escape into fantasies of the wonderful and macabre. For many people, the small space littered with neatly stacked books would have induced a keen sense of claustrophobia. But for Ben, it was like a comforting womb, a place where he could be both himself and be protected, and even cry if need be, as he'd done on several occasions recently. Ben had a lot of books, perhaps even an obscene amount. There was nothing he enjoyed more than living the exciting life of another. But there was nothing he hated more than having to return to his unexciting reality, where parents weren't to be trusted and friendships sailed away faster than he could grasp onto. Time had seemed to blink by since the accident. Ben was not disappointed with his present. The new Harry Potter book was more than he had hoped for, and before he knew it, 2 hours had passed and he was already a third of the way through. Sighing, he reluctantly set it down so that he could go get one last bowl of ice cream before bed, and watch some reruns of The Joy of Painting, while his grandmother snored and drooled in the armchair, as she always did. Tucking it under his arm, he noticed a book that he'd not seen before, sitting atop a stack that'd been out of view. Thinking perhaps it was left as a surprise gift, he picked it up and furrowed his brows in confusion. The book's cover was made of a strange, black, spongy material. A shiny crimson set of eyes and teeth was stamped onto the cover, the appearance of which unsettled Ben. On the side, stamped in the same shiny crimson, was inscripted, "The Book of Agony." Intrigued, Ben opened the book to a random page and saw the paper was a blotchy gray. The left page was covered in minuscule cursive, while the right page was taken up by a brownish-red watercolor painting that smelled of pennies. A small moan of shock escaped Ben's lips as he stared at the painting. Staring him in the eyes was a grotesquely realistic depiction of an old woman with her jaw split into two, with needles stuck carelessly in her eyes. Instinctively, Ben thrust the book at the wall and began to back away towards the door. But he didn't get out of the cubbyhole before he unintentionally glanced back and saw it had landed face up. Turned to a page at the end. He saw for an instant the face of Daniel Mortley staring up at the ceiling. Ben didn't bother to look any further. He immediately clamped his eyes shut. Ben grabbed the book, slammed it shut, and raced to his room, where he threw it under his bed. Why he decided to put it there, Ben did not know, nor did the thought occur to him. Thinking of his grandmother, he stumbled back downstairs to try to find some comfort, but he was disappointed to see that her head was thrust back, drool and snores oozing from her mouth. Not wanting to wake her, despite the terror he felt, he instead went to the kitchen and made himself a large bowl of ice cream and sat down on the couch. He knew he should wake his grandmother, but the thought made a ball of anxiety rise in his pit. He imagined it like a ball of snakes wriggling around down there. He was always wary of disturbing adults. His parents rarely took it well, even on good days.
Family is still missing, though authorities suspect foul play at an abandoned office building at the edge of Woodgrove, where they were reportedly last seen. And to add a disturbing layer to the mystery, authorities found evidence of arson as well as copious amounts of blood, a strange contraption, as well as the remains of what is believed to be some kind of shrine.
Stargate had turned off at some point while Ben was upstairs, and the evening news was now playing. But the last thing he wanted to see was the footage of a possible murder scene. He scanned the room for the remote, but to his dismay, he found it barely sticking out from his grandmother's ass, and unfortunately, the buttons on the TV itself didn't work. It was an old piece of shit, Dave always said, but he refused to ever save up for a new one when they had a perfectly fine one already. The built-in VCR player didn't even work. It just devoured the tape like a savage monster. Ben set down the ice cream and tried to gently pull out the TV remote from Helga's ass without detection, but she gave a loud snort the second he laid fingers on it. He resigned himself to having to suffer through the dismal new station, trying instead to distract himself with his new book.
The killer of 15-year-old Sullivan Jones is still at large. The young boy was found murdered last March in the Maysburg Juvenile Detention Center under unknown circumstances. Authorities suspect it may be related to the murder spree we saw last winter, yet to determine if the murder spree is also related to the disappearance of the family in Woodgrove. Here's Larry Ross of the Woodgrove Police Department on the subject.
Yes, it is extremely upsetting to the community, and we are just as disturbed as everyone else about the past year's murders. But we don't believe that the same killer is likely responsible for all of them. We suspect that the disappearance is, and rest assured, we are working extremely hard to bring justice to these perpetrators. But in the meantime, exercise caution, especially when alone.
The news was wrapped up, and after a few minutes of commercials, a documentary about forest fires came on, and Ben was finally able to escape.
Hey Daniel, you want to climb to the top of the school?
Ben asked as he, Daniel, Thomas, and Jay were aimlessly riding around the summertime streets on their bikes, not a care in the world.
Shit.
Daniel said as he gave Ben a disapproving glance.
Just why? Why the hell would I do that?
What?
Thomas shouted from ahead as the suburban copycat houses flew by, the wind rushing in their ears.
Ben wants to climb on top of the fucking school.
Daniel yelled.
Fuck that.
Thomas exclaimed.
Well, I say, fuck yeah.
Daniel answered back, smirking at Ben. His dark brown hair seemed to be carried away into nothingness by the wind.
What's going on?
Jay asked as he came even with Ben and Daniel.
We're going to climb the school.
Daniel answered. They rode on, not stopping until they reached Woodgrove Elementary, the sun still hanging in the same spot overhead.
Man, I don't know about this.
Thomas whined as they parked their bikes behind the cafeteria.
There's a couple of cars parked out front. What if somebody calls the cops?
Fuck that.
Daniel said.
Don't be a little pushy again. We talked about this. We're going up there.
Yeah, don't be a party pooper.
Ben chided.
Bet you poop yourself whenever you see in the mirror.
Jay commented, heading over to the dumpster with the air vent above it.
Is that the way up?
Ben asked, as Jay mounted the dumpster and put his hand on one of the slats in the vent.
I think. I don't know.
Well, hurry up. I want to get up there too.
Alright. Just give me a second.
Jay swiftly climbed the air vent and pushed his way over to the roof, wiping the dirt off his hands and the sweat from his forehead.
Hey, I really think this is a bad idea. Can't we just, go get some snacks or something?
Daniel scoffed loudly.
Then why don't you just stay down here and keep watch then?
Ben asked as he went up behind Daniel in case he fell.
Alright, you got it, Daniel?
His friend affirmed as he began to climb the air vent. Ben stood onto the dumpster, when Daniel was about 2 feet away from the roof.
Dude, cops!
Ben could see the panic in Daniel's eyes, as he lost his grip and started to fall towards him. Vaguely, Ben heard Jay yell something at Thomas, but he was too focused on making sure he could catch Daniel. Daniel seemed to fall in slow motion, and Ben too seemed to have slowed, frustrating sense of movement. Too slow to catch Daniel, as his head smacked the corner of the metal lid, and his body slammed into concrete, Stumbling, Ben too fell off, his back scraping against the concrete.
Jesus Christ, there's blood everywhere.
Jay cried as he raced to Daniel's limp body.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
Ben didn't move from where he was, but only stared at the splashes of blood surrounding Daniel.
I didn't mean for this. I didn't mean for this. Christ, I was lying when I said there were cops. I just wanted to get out of here.
Ben froze as he watched Daniel raise his face to look at him, his skull cracked open and an eye out of place. Ben awoke to the slam of a car door. The TV was still going. He noticed his body was cold and sweaty, his eyes full of tears.
I tried everything. I tried Drano, coat hangers, heroin, legal abortion. Nothing worked.
Ignoring the TV and remembering that he was supposed to be in bed, Ben raced into the kitchen and threw his bowl into the sink. He could wait until later to tell them about the book.
9 out of 10 doctors agree that child pregnancy is even worse before puberty. Please, call this number to donate today.
Ben could hear the key in front of the door, but he couldn't get to the stairs quick enough before his father was staring him in the face.
What the hell are you still doing up?
Helga gave a snort and woke up with a kind of a flail, her shirt front soaked in drool.
Ma? Ma, did you fall asleep again?
Helga shook her head violently and noticed that whatever was playing on the TV was something that needed to be changed before Dave noticed. Reaching under her ass to grab the remote, she tried to change the channel, but only succeeded in blasting the volume through the roof.
And now, please join us as we discover how one man contracted syphilis by sticking his whole head up an artery.
Dave had grabbed the remote from Helga and turned it off himself, shooting icy glares towards her and Ben. Ben noticed that his father was unusually red, and that he seemed to have trouble standing upright, and the same with Penny.
What in God's name were you watching?
He slurred. Helga shook her head witlessly, and Ben simply tried to ease his way up the stairs, which were directly in front of the door. Dave shook his head and sighed.
Ma, we talked about falling asleep every time you babysit.
Helga stared blankly at him for a second before she snatched up her purse along with the photo album of Dave's baby photos and waddled out the door. Ben's parents stared after him for a moment before Dave waved him silently upstairs, and Penny told him to go to bed, muttering about how they should take away his stupid books. But Ben couldn't get the final image of Daniel in the dream out of his mind, staring up at him, his face bloodied, his eye jutting out and staring into his eyes. What really happened that summer afternoon had been much happier. Thomas had falsely announced that the cops were coming, and Ben had caught Daniel safely as he fell from above. But the nightmare had been vivid. At long last, he managed to fall back asleep with tears in his eyes, and he dreamed of red rivers and burning snow. If you have any stories that you would like to see narrated here on the channel, please go into the subreddit and submit them there. The link is in the description. Also, we do have a Discord now. Thank you so much to Creepy Clown Girl for putting it together for us. You can come hang out with me and other narrators and get the party started, get spooky with us. That link is also in the description as well. And last but certainly not least, I wanted to introduce the King of Panic. We have a lot of brand new content coming soon with him in it. He is very talented. He does not have his own channel. He just kind of wants to be a part of this. So if you would like to hear from him once you start and you like his voice, stay tuned here. And as always, thank you for visiting the Panic Room. You have successfully made it to the next portion of your tour. Please stay tuned for your next prompt. Click the like button and subscribe to receive notifications for when the next portion of your tour is ready to join. Thank you for watching. Don't let the panic drown you.